I guess that's why they have a new offensive coordinator, or at least why the old one's gone, and they're going to have two new people sharing those duties now. So we'll go from something that didn't work to something that may work because it's convoluted and we trust them and we love them and they both want to be here at Penn State. There was lots of subtext, and now I'm moving us to the OC, so I don't know if you're ready or not.
No,
There was
I'm
lots
good.
of subtext in the aftermath. Like, oh, these guys have been here. We get, like, you hear people like, talk, oh, the players trust them and whatever else. Well, was there not trust? I mean, just that kind of silliness that comes out that you say that you end up overthinking, perhaps, but yeah, they're going to beat. If Penn State doesn't win the last two games, then that's not good. Right? Then there's
There's
real
real
trouble.
problems.
It's exactly. I don't think it matters who the interim would be or who the next two are. They should have enough talent and enough motivation and enough whatever else to win the final two games. So, and I think they could have won them with Yurcich here, but I guess if you know you're going to get rid of him, do it sooner rather than later, so the numbers don't look good at the end of the season and people wonder why you did it. But I'm not sure. I think unless whoever's in the position is doing the plays the coaches wants them, the head coach wants them to do and agrees with, then you still don't. It's still not going to work.
Well, okay, let's walk this through, because you hit on just about everything that I wanted to hit on there. I think let's talk about the firing, right? Like, let's talk about that just from the standpoint of it coming Sunday after the Michigan game. I think you're 100% right that fans would, I don't know if you're 100% right on that. Now that I think about it, I think people would still be understanding. I think right now, doing it now gets the pressure off your back a lot faster after losing to Michigan and really blowing your last shot at the college football playoff. So I think that's why it came now. And I think that, but also, like I said and wrote, like, John Donovan got to the end of the season and he was far worse than Mike Yurcich. And I don't know, it was ballsy for James Franklin to do, and I will commend him on it. Unfortunately, he had to do it, so I'm not going to commend him on the hire in the first place. And the irony isn't lost on me that Kirk Shiraka is coming into town this weekend too, which is the guy that he hired or fired to get.
But realistically, at this point, they've been through enough offensive coordinators. You're going to bump into him any place, anywhere now, right? Because Shiraka was in Minnesota, but I mean, it's
no. So I think that was interesting, and I think we have talked about learning moments for James Franklin over the last. Really, I think ultimately this year, in a lot of ways, until that Michigan game, primarily, was the culmination of he seemed like he was learning his lessons, and then kind of the coaching decisions in the Michigan game stopped that momentum, and then firing Mike Yurcich after the fact picked that momentum back up a little bit, just a little bit though. So that makes me, as a Penn State fan, sleep a little bit better at night. That being said, what doesn't make me sleep better at night, or is confusing to me and was bizarre, was out of the press conference today, and you hit on it there. There was a comment about collaboration, and I think he actually used that word maybe a couple times. And it sounded like Mike Yurcich was kind of over in his own world, own element, and he was doing his own thing, and nobody could kind of talk him out off that ledge or off that plane. And it's like, well, okay, but James Franklin, you're an offensive coach. Like, you're a wide receivers coach. Like, you were an offensive coordinator. What do you mean? What do you mean he was kind of doing his own thing? And I thought that was weird, based on all of this. Like, clearly there was a schism. There were some issues that we're never going to know about. But it was interesting to hear him say, like, he was, I think, I forget who asked the question. He's flat out asked, like, were there times that plays were not called, or plays were called that you didn't want, and vice versa type thing? And he said yes. Like, he flat out said yes. And I don't know. It was bizarre.
It doesn't matter to me if your previous experience was as a defensive line coach. If you're the head coach and that's happening, if it happens once, it happens once. If it happens the second time, then you solve the problem. And maybe that's what this is. Maybe this was because otherwise it doesn't make as much sense. I'll give you the, if you know you're going to do it now so it doesn't linger. But unless the offensive coordinator was in some way disrespectful, right? Or just, yeah, like it just doesn't make sense. And it almost sounds like at least
I
that was
think
what he
that's what it
hinted at, right?
was. Well,
No.
he hinted at it today is Monday, today in the Monday press conference, but he said almost verbatim the same exact quote he said against Ohio State after the Ohio State game
Mm-hmm.
in the Michigan post game press conference of we didn't call the right plays to get him into a rhythm. And it was bizarre because, like you said, like there is a file and ranked college football coaching, and if James Franklin wants something, he should get it. And it's
And if he's
frustrating
not
that
and the person's being insubordinate, okay, then I guess
yeah,
you press the button, right? So I mean, again, we'll never know. I still think it feels like it's the head coach's decision on when to, go for two or not.
that one, yeah,
Those
no,
kind of things,
that's
you know. So, and those things cost as much. Those little things, for as close as Penn State is, for as far away as some people feel they are, logically they really aren't. Unfortunately, I mean that's the struggle. Unfortunately, they aren't. They're just the third best team in this conference, and maybe the third best team in this conference going forward. Because the division thing changes next year. You don't get Ohio State, Michigan, but that doesn't still mean somebody might not be better because you get Oregon right back in the
right.
conference and those kind of things. So
No, I think about that. I was thinking about that a lot. I was thinking about even the Iowa, like, please don't get bored with this grinding it out game plan. Like, there's a lot of little things, and that was one of the other things I wrote down here, kind of like on my notes, is you kind of piece together some of all of this context. And Rich Carcella had a really good friend of the podcast. Rich Carcella had a really
there you go.
good column today about he was kind of surprised it didn't happen sooner. And when you piece together, even like that Wisconsin, that first game of Mike Yurcich's career, where Penn State did not look explosive, did not, and really had to only win on the back of one explosive play. That was weird. And then you look at the play calling, particularly in the overtime, the 9 overtimes. You look at, even that Michigan State game. I was trying to find the quote. If you were following along on Twitter, I was trying to find a quote. There's a quote out there from someone in Penn State's players. I think it was a player, said something to the effect of, I don't know, you're going to have to ask the coaches why they decided to keep running the ball. And I think that quote kind of was like ringing in my head. I don't know. It's going back to your initial point of the, like, with two more games, like, I think that's kind of we as Penn State fans got blinded by the scoreboard being so high that we didn't look at the underlying statistics, right? Of of okay, they beat out these teams, but they're ranked one of the worst teams in the country in explosive plays. Okay, they really have had a few 10-win seasons, hopefully even this year, but they still lost the two that really mattered the most. And it really boiled down to the offense kind of just not figuring it out type thing. So it's one of those, like, hindsight's always 2020 things, but yeah, like maybe it was time, and maybe that's why you do it now. It's easier to pull the trigger now. I don't know.
yeah, I mean that's the story. I guess that, again, we won't ever know whether there was, what was or wasn't going on. I mean, it still feels PR wise, it just feels panicky a little bit in creating noise that you don't need to create. I mean, they could probably patch the things behind the scenes and people would never know the final two, but that's what you're going to do. I guess go ahead and make the decision, and it's helpful for the coach, right, to have someone that have a move to make after those losses. And we'll see what happens next.
I was, I think that's a good segue into, like, what comes next. And Penn State went out and probably, Lord knows what they spent on Manny Diaz on top of his Miami buyout to get him to come be a defensive coordinator in a landlocked state where he preciously loves his boat, and probably likes the warmer weather of Miami much more. And that happened really under the Pat Kraft era. And Well, no, it didn't happen in the back half year. Did it? No, it didn't. It did not. Sorry. But it feels like Penn State's willing to spend more. So like, is that what they're going to do here? Is that do you go out and you spend a crap ton of money on an OC that you think can elevate the program, more importantly, elevate the quarterback, because I think that's the key piece to all of this. And even Franklin like kind of hinted around like, we're going to do something, but we're not going to do it because of the quarterback. We're going to do it for the quarterback type deal. And I don't know. I think if Penn State's kind of figured out recruiting, which I think they recruit well, like regardless of who's been on the staff at any time, come and go, I think Penn State's always recruited well. Do you go just get an OC that's good at being an OC and good at coaching quarterbacks, but not necessarily the world's best recruiter? I think that's maybe what you go do. But I'm still not convinced that this isn't just going to end up in J1 Sider's hands at the end of the day. Because I just it's starting to feel a little Brent Pry, James Franklin, like they're tight like that. I don't know.
I don't know. Don't know that I honestly care, right? Like, I mean, I think find somebody to do the job and let somebody do the job for a little bit, hopefully. The cynic in me looks at it and says, okay, 6 offensive coordinators. What's been the same this whole time? Clearly, it hasn't been the offensive coordinator, right?
Right.
So, I don't know. I'm hopeful for the program that they find someone that they think is excellent and puts them in the best, best staff, best players, excellent sports success, blah, 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 blah. Still got to win 2 games a year. I mean, it's just going to come down to that. And games like this week, in the whole scheme of things, don't matter to some fans as much because they are assumed, right? They had that whole thing, Coach Franklin had the whole thing, people assume that yes, unfortunately, you're in a position where it's assumed you are going to win 10 games a year. Got to figure out a way to win 2 more.
Well, let me ask you this. What would you, and I say honestly, because I want you to ask me it back. But what are your thoughts on Joe Moorhead coming back?
I think that'd be fine. That'd be fine. What about you? You don't want him to come back?
I don't want him to come back.
Okay.
I don't.
I don't think he will. Like I
don't think he will.
I don't think you see a lot of that where people go and come back to where they were. I mean, I'm sure you could pick out examples of it, but I don't think I don't know. I would be surprised, I guess.
It's about how I feel with it too.
And he wasn't Franklin's OC, right? He was OB's OC.
No, he was
Franklin's.
Yeah, he was Franklin's.
Okay. Because he went and talked to him and the whole Holy Cross thing and the recruiting and blah blah blah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I just thought I would be surprised.
I don't think I think I would be surprised too. And I don't know. It's hard to look at that sample size or that sample data when you have Saquon Barkley on your roster, right? Like that was
right.
Prime Saquon. So I don't know. Those are my hot takes for today. Okay. I feel good. You get everything out there. Need to be said on offensive coordinators.
Yep.
In the Michigan game.
Yep. Can't wait to see what happens next. It'll be exciting.